Hi everyone, this is Brandon with TechStep Academy, and for today's session, I thought we would have a little bit of fun. So, as a way to solidify these new skills and challenge these new skills that you've earned over the past couple of videos, what I thought I'd do, and we're going to do this once every few videos, we'll have one of these. I've, in the spirit of fun, created what I like to call a little bit of a ninja trial, right? A way to test yourself. So this is going to use not only your browser automation skills, it's going to use your problem solving skills as well. And again, the only way to get better at this is to train, train, train. So this is going to train and discipline your mind, and I guess you could say your body, right? Your fingers are typing away. So real quick, I'm just going to go over the rules and explain kind of what's going on, and I will give you the URL and everything. The link for that will be provided in YouTube, on the YouTube video. And I will, at the appropriate moment, I will tell you to pause the video. And if you're actually interested in getting better at this and becoming good at this, then you will go and you will accomplish this. And whether you succeed or whether you have some challenges, that's okay. You can come back to the video and I will then go through it kind of with my own approach. And that'll be it. So you can sort of see how I approach my problem solving. But again, there are multiple ways to approach these. So real quick, the URL for this again is linked on the YouTube video. But if you'd like it audibly, it's techstepacademy.com/trial of the stones. That's plural. Each one of those is separated by a dash. So techstepacademy.com/trial of the stones. And once you're there, we have 4 rules. First rule is you can absolutely practice and explore manually. You can accomplish this manually. Do all your homework. Do the detective work that we talked about, right? Line up all of your locators beforehand. That'll severely decrease the amount of time you spend coding, and that's a good thing. But once it comes down to actually accomplishing this trial, to succeed in this trial, you must perform everything automatically from beginning to end for it to count. Rule number 2, you'll notice that at the very bottom, there is a button that says check answers. So once all the riddles have been solved, you're going to click the check answers button, right? And that's going to, if you are successful and all of the riddles have been answered, then the words trial complete should appear down here. And that has to be done again automatically. Rule number 3, once that message, trial complete, does appear, I would like you to perform an assert against it, which again makes this an actual test, an automated test. The test being, given that you have completed the 3 riddles and clicked the check answers button, the trial complete text should appear, right? And I'd like you to assert that. The 4th and final rule is there is a challenge called the challenge of the 2 merchants. You can see down here. This is probably the most difficult of the challenges here. There are 2 ways you can do this. The simplest way to approach it is just find the element of the highest balance, right? The highest amount of wealth, and find the name associated with that balance using a locator. The intent here is not for you to have to compare these numbers programmatically. The intent is for you to walk the hierarchy, right? To start at the balance down here and then walk your way up to the name of the merchant. That's the real intent. Now, if you're very comfortable with Python and you'd like a little bit more of a challenge, then absolutely you can find these and evaluate them and dynamically discover who is the richest merchant. I would be very pleased if you had some solutions to that, and I'd love to see them. So that concludes all of the rules, right? And they're listed up here should you forget what I said. Real quick, there again are 3: riddle of stone, riddle of secrets, and the 2 merchants. They should be fairly explicit. One of them is sort of like a crossword. The second one is going to rely on some information you get on solving that first riddle. And we already went over the 2 merchants. Do not forget to click check answers. That's a big one. So without further ado, go ahead and hit pause and go take a crack at it, right? Good luck. I'm really excited to see you on the other side of this, and then I will go over my own personal approach for solving it. Okay, so I'm going to assume that you've gone and taken a stab at it. I'm sure some of the more enterprising or lazy of you probably just want to go ahead and see how I did it. You're not going to get as much practice and you probably won't remember it as much, but you know, whatever. I'm here to serve all types of learners. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to create, you can see I have an IDE on the right. I use PyCharm. You can use whatever you want. It's not important. I will call this trial 1. And I'm going to move quick here because these are all things that you've already accomplished. I'm not going to beat you over the head with it. Before I even write a line of code, I need to get the lay of the land here, do my detective work. So I see riddle of stone. Answering doesn't do anything. Another word for stone, the only one I can think of is rock. And indeed, I get some luck here. So something has appeared. It appears important. So I already know that there's 2 actions I need to take here. I need to type something in here. Well, 3. I need to click the button. Now I'm going to have to retrieve that information. Let's go ahead and get started. Put. So I might as well get all my libraries straight. You know what? Just for the sake of showing you something new, let's try this one. Find it by ID. We know the ID. And real quick, I'm going to check, make sure it works. Looks good. Yep. All right. Next one. Move this on the next line so you can see it. And again, since I'm showing you some new stuff here, instead of just doing the button ID, I'm going to use a shorthand for that, just to show you some new stuff. This is under the CSS selectors documentation. You can Google that. Very, very handy. Hash will also work as an ID. And just to test that theory, there we are. Looks good. And what do we get here? I know I need this to type into my second riddle here. So it looks like an H4 couched in a div. This is a good example of a sort of nested approach. I'm going to get surgical here. I'm not going to assume that this H4 is the only H4 in the entire page. So how can I describe it a little more broadly while still being more specific? I can say, well, why don't you get me a div? I see we have an ID of password banner. And I'm going to check, make sure that works. Looks good. And we have a little more. You can either do a space or do this. I prefer this. It's a little more explicit. Say, well, I want to look for a div that has the ID of password banner, and under it there is an H4, a header 4. So I want the header 4. That's what I'm looking for based on what I see here, right? If I inspect it again. So that should get me the div and then move down to the H4. Let's see if that works. Beautiful. So let's move on. Now what I would do if I were you, again, is not type like I just did. It's a bad idea. There could be hidden spaces in here. People make mistakes. Copy, paste, always. Success, good. ID R2 input. So I know that is an input with an ID of R2 input. And again, for those of you that did this, sorry, ID or name, that is perfectly fine as well. It's actually more readable to people who are new at locators, but when you're working with people who are used to them, it's okay to use the hash. I just want to expose you slowly to kind of things you're going to see more often, right? Because you will absolutely see that format out in the wild. So let's make sure this works. Looks good. And again, all I'm doing is making sure I get this result down here. And I can look at the highlighting up here to make sure it looks good. I need the answer button. R2 button. The only reason I'm forcing you to watch me go through each one of these is it actually does save me time in the long run to check each one, rather than running the Python program and then having one fail and having to go guess and debug it. It's better just to test it right now and be absolutely sure for each one. It seems time consuming, but you're actually saving time on the whole. As you get more confident with this, I could kind of go through here and guess, and I might be right most of the time. But when you're starting off, it is very good to be in the practice of validating each one as you go. Again, if you've ever heard the old saying, measure twice, cut once, right? Once you've cut, sometimes it's time consuming or impossible to go back. And actually, I don't need this. This just tells me it was a success. I don't need to capture that. It's not useful for anything. So I'm good on that one. Let's be readable. Now, this is not going to be what my testing code would look like. I want to go ahead and preface that. I'm just writing a quick script here. We're going to get into how to structure things in a much more efficient way later. So for any of you who actually have automation experience, just save the angry retorts until after we've gotten into page object model and all that good stuff. We need to limit the scope of what we're teaching here so we can extract all the meaning we want out of the important stuff. All right, so I'm going to show you the two different methods of doing this. We asked for the name of the richest merchant. First method is, well, just find which number is higher, right? Looks like a paragraph element, which is sitting under a div. So why don't we try found a lot of them. So that's not going to be helpful. Let's take another look. Nothing identifying about the div. That's not helpful. So it looks like and Jessica. All right, so a little bit of complexity here. I didn't want to make things too easy. You'll notice that we have the span, which contains the name that we need, but it's actually on the same level as the label and the paragraph, which makes this a little more difficult. So for the easy thing here, we're just going to find the one that actually equals 3000, which again means just using this 3000 element and moving around to show that we can move around in the hierarchy, and then I'll show you how I would actually solve the problem programmatically as well. So here is, we'll say, simple approach. I'm going to look for the name. And we're going to start with the paragraph. Now, actually, I want to find by the contents of this. I mentioned in the rules up here, you probably saw. If you're doing the simple method, you can start by finding the web element representing the highest number and navigating to the merchant's name using XPath. And I'm going to need to use an XPath for the simple reason that if I'm starting with an assumed 3000, right? Then in order for me to actually match on text in the locator, you have to use XPath. So we're going to say somewhere in that hierarchy, give me, there is a paragraph. I'm going to describe it. Call the text function. Say there's some text that equals 3000, and we're going to test that for sure. That's a pretty complex one. We're doing an XPath check, so it's going to be an X. Okay, good news, right? So now we've got some place we need to go. I'm going to go ahead and do it over here to check it. Not only do I need that paragraph, you can do this with or without spaces. I'll do it with spaces just to make it more clear. I want to, let's take a look at the hierarchy. I need to get that name. That name is here on the same level, which means I can't get to it here without going up and back down, right? If you remember our last video. So basically, I'm going to have to go up one to this div and then back down to the span, which means, hey, find me 3000, go up to the div. Let's prove that that gets us to the div. Indeed it does. And let's get to a span. Looks good. That's exactly where I wanted to be. Okay, so that should get me the richest merchant name, which should satisfy this trial, this challenge. So let's finish this. I'm going to use ID again. I'm going to switch these up periodically just to keep you on your toes. I want them to, when you see these, I want you to instantly understand what they are so that you, again, become familiar with them. I should probably test this before I get too confident. Nope, yep, and that's the reason. It's an input with an ID of R3 input. Oh, of course. You can tell it's late. There we are. So finding it by ID will find. We don't put the input in there, obviously, because we're finding by ID, not by CSS selector. Now I need you. Oh, I just found you. Okay. No, I didn't. Okay, there we are. I know these variables are long, like they have long names for them. I'm doing that on purpose right now just for clarity. If I were actually doing this for work, I probably wouldn't make them this long. I will always err on the side of longer variable names if it makes everything perfectly clear. Code is read much more often than it is written. Looks good. One more, and then we will test our theory. So let's try this. Good. Let's try this. Good. That's what we expect. Now, before some of you ask me why I'm not kind of switching off between XPath and CSS selector, I actually have a very heavy preference towards CSS selector. I typically only use XPaths in events where I really need to match on text or move around the hierarchy, things like that. That's kind of the energy where the energy is in the industry. They kind of like CSS selectors, mostly because people are anti-XPath when people see the copy and paste from web tools. They'll paste in XPaths, which are just the entire hierarchy, and it's really gross and very brittle. I don't ever write XPaths like that, so again, I'm okay writing them, but I typically prefer CSS selectors whenever possible. Just whatever fixes your issue, whatever context you're in, that's going to dictate your habits, right? Let's use name this time just for fun. And there we are, looks good. So I know that one is solid. Last one we need, we got to assert on this, right? So here we are, another div and another h4. Remember I had one earlier, and thankfully I was smart enough to use one of those identifying attributes, right? If I just said, oh, the div with the h4 under it, I would get all these, and that's bad. I may get any one of them, right? So that's, again, be as surgically as you possibly can at all times. You want to be as close to 100% certain you are going to get the right element as possible. So for this one, div, I'm going to guess div with an ID of, and again, just copy paste, don't risk it. and I will show you just for the sake of completion or to cover everything. You don't have to have this if you don't want to. It'll just assume it. There's an H4 under that. Let me prove that theory. Gravy. All right. Well, we're ready to rock, I think. So we got a lot going on here. Let's go ahead and start using them. So I'm sorry that the text is so big up here, but it's sort of necessary for you to see what's going on. We'll just make do the best we can. I am going to close this browser because we're probably going to see a new one open when we start automating. So let's get our code going. Just to help us along here so I don't have to keep scrolling, I'm going to, well, hopefully get the right menu going here. No, that was not it. There we are. Okay, so just to help us out here, I'm going to look at my structure so I can kind of see the variables I've done just to help you avoid watching me scroll the entire time. Okay, so I know I've got a stone input, stone answer button, stone result. Boy, I closed that window a little bit early, didn't I? Let's go back real quick. All right, so still got all our stuff in there. That's great. What do I need to do here? Let's walk through this again. I need to type in the answer to this this riddle, right? So let's do that. This is why all that prep work is really nice. Now, how do we send text to an element? We use send keys, right? Now, we're going to send stone. Sorry, that's not going to work. That would fail, wouldn't it? We're going to send the right answer, and that would be rock. Stone answer button probably needs to be clicked. You see how quick this is, right? When you do all the setup, man, writing scripts just becomes boom, boom, boom. And once we click that, we assume there is going to be a stone result, right? So what did we do for that one? Stone result. We found the element. We need to assign the password. And we do that by taking the element that we got and by using the right assignment operator. So we take that element, because again, stone result, we use the find element, so it's going to result in a web element object, right? So we're going to go ahead and scrape that and get what? I believe we determined that, well, let's go ahead and check. So here's an interesting piece of information. Anytime you have text between two tags, a start and an end tag here, you can call .text on this element to retrieve it. If this is actually inside an input field and things like that, then you have to retrieve it using the .value on that element, okay? A very important distinction to make. Essentially, you can sort of try both, right? If .text doesn't work, try .value. But the rule is, if it's got a start and an end tag, you can actually extract it using .text. If not, if it's in up here, you can use .value and it will get that value attribute for you. The value attribute may not always show up in here when you're doing your practice, right? So you see, if I were to inspect this, there is no, I've written rock here. You don't see rock in the value here, but if I were to actually call the value, you would get rock. So let's try text, because again, that is a capture between these two tags. Now we're going to use that and type it into here. And what was that called? That was called secrets input. Secrets input dot send keys again. What are we going to send? Well, just the password. We already did all the work, right? Why type again? Secrets answer button, just click it. No problem there, right? We're just entering it in here, clicking that button. Then we get to the fun stuff. The simple solution would be we took richest merchant name, we have that, we found it, so let's go ahead and enter that in to where it belongs. Richest merchant name should work. Click the answer button as usual. Now we get to the fun part. We should click that, and we're going to assert that the complete message, which we defined right here, div trial complete banner, right? Now let's take a look at that. Make sure I have all my successes here. There we go. Just to remind myself, okay, we have it between two tags, so we can use .text. That's the rule. Equals what? Let's not fat finger it, right? Okay, that's it. That's the script. So, you know, that's literally the entirety. This all down here is all that work. So you can see that as we start to abstract things and use variables, your automation can really be very small. So let's go ahead and try it. Why wait? Nothing ever works in the first try, but you know, we can always hope and dream. Oh yes, we did forget one very important thing, didn't we? Just shows you what happens when you're in a rush. We should probably go to the actual trial in order to accomplish it, right? So let's do that. Once again. Okay, we didn't get there. Ah, yes. Important note. To grab all of these elements, you sort of have to actually be on the page, right? Let's redo that. Otherwise, we're going to have a very hard time retrieving these elements from the nothing, right? The ether that is out there. So now, let us try this. Okay, so something blew up. We see merchant send keys, richest merchant name. All right, so I sent it what I thought was a string, and I probably didn't send it a string. What I probably sent it was a web element. Let's find out here. So it got mad, right? Saying, well, when you tried to do send keys to the merchant input, you sent richest merchant name, and then we got to trying to join all of the keys that we were sending, and it turns out that, yep, I sent a web element, not a string. So the importance of understanding how to read a stack trace is good, but I kind of had an idea once I saw what was going on. So let's actually make sure we're getting this in the right form we need it. Richest merchant name, we find that element by XPath. Okay, that actually gets us the element. That does not get us the name. In order to have the name, what do we need? Well, is it wrapped by tags? Because if it is, we can use .text, right? Gross. There we go. And it is indeed wrapped by the bold tag. So let's go ahead and just, why don't we just tack this on right here? Say, because I don't want the element, what I actually want was the name. We're not using the element for anything else later. Otherwise, I would assign a separate element, right? And then grab the text from that. So that should solve the problem. Let's find out. A little last minute troubleshooting here. I do like showing you when things blow up because things are going to blow up for you too. And it's good that we all work through together. Okay. So it looked like it worked. We see here, okay, rock, bamboo, success, okay, success, and trial complete. So not too bad, right? One little fly in the ointment, fix that pretty quick. And I hope it's been fun for you. Congratulations on completing the Trial of the Stones. Whether you got to the end or not doesn't matter. It's the exercise and the practice that counts. So I am excited to join you for our next video coming up soon. For the next video, we're going to be continuing our work on the Selenium commands. We're going to be working with drop downs. We're going to be just getting into some deeper stuff and really solidifying this knowledge so that we get you ready to, well, hopefully do this for a career if that's what you're into, or do it for a fun hobby, right? Again, I'm Brandon with TextUp Academy. Really appreciate you sitting through this, and I will see you next time.